Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, this following weekend, on the undercard of Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, I would say Frazer Clarke stole the show when it comes to the undercard. First round knockout of Frazer Clarke in their rematch, of course first time around. It was a brutal affair that was ruled a draw. But, Fabio Wardley goes in there, rights the wrong of the first fight, and he does it in extremely brutal fashion. In fact, I'd actually call it one of the knockouts of the year. Nobody's really called it that, but for me it is. It's not as aesthetically pleasing as other knockouts this year. So, for example, Angelo Leo's knockout over Bernardo Lopez. That knockout was a lot more aesthetically pleasing. A lot more picturesque, I would say. But in terms of, pure brutality, Fabio Wardley's knockout over Frazer Clarke is right up there. I don't think I've ever seen an injury like that, to be honest, caused by a knockout. But, yeah, crazy knockout. Great win by Fabio Wardley. But the question is, where does Fabio Wardley go from here? Where does he currently stand in the heavyweight division? And what does he mean for the division and us fans, So for me, Fabio Wardley's a guy who I will choose to support. Number one, he's exciting. Last two fights he's really delivered in different ways. Last fight, of course, a brutal knockout. Fight before that, in the first fight with Frazer, fight of the year contender domestically. He's giving us entertaining moments, entertaining fights. Even the Nathan Gorman fight a couple of years ago was very entertaining. He's a flawed fighter, and that comes from his lack of amateur pedigree, which is well documented. Only had a couple of white-collar fights. But for me personally, I just think that adds to the excitement factor, considering he's contending with that, yet still he's got to where he's got to. Because even becoming a British champion with no amateur pedigree is a pretty big feat, to be honest. And from now on, for me, Fabio Wardley's like a free hit almost. I think he's one of those fighters, one of those rare fighters where I don't really think we should put any expectations on him, as in he should fight for a heavyweight title, he should win a heavyweight title, nothing like that. All I really want from Fabio Wardley is entertainment. Take fights that are going to be entertaining, take fights of moderate challenge, and go from there, essentially, Again, outside the ring, I quite like Fabio Wardley. He's not really a gimmicky type of fighter, which we are flooded with here in the UK. Seems to be taking the opportunity by the scruff of a neck. Seems to be willing to fight fire with fire, go to war, take risks. And I think, the heavyweight division is better off for a guy like Fabio Wardley, to be honest. And, when Fabio came along, I wasn't that impressed in the sense of the matchmaking. I'll be honest, I felt a couple of his opponents took dives. So for me, at the beginning, it was kind of forced with Fabio Wardley. In my opinion, I couldn't really get behind him. But the last sort of couple of years or so, I have warmed to him. And domestically, I'd say he's one of my favourite fighters here in the UK. But, following that win over Frazer Clarke, and the brutal nature of that knockout, I think naturally there's going to be some expectation now, right? He kind of stole the show on the undercard, like I said. There's going to be some expectation. I don't think Fabio Wardley can really go back now to a lower level, or even stay the same level. I think now he's going to be expected to take steps up, and I think he should. Because I think Fabio Wardley is one of those guys where a loss isn't really going to affect his market value when you take into account the circumstances. But at the same time, there should still be some caution in regards to the matchmaking. Still step-ups, but not like drastic step-ups. So for example, if I was matching Fabio Wardley, I wouldn't go for a top 10 guy right away. Not a universal top 10 guy next. I think in Fabio Wardley's next fight, he should be sufficiently challenged, but by a guy who is ranked in between 11 and 20 in the heavyweight division. So, one fight I really like would be Fabio Wardley versus Efe Ajagba. I think that would be a tremendously exciting fight. Risky fight, of course. But, you know, when you're Fabio Wardley, when you're fighting the way you're fighting with no amateur pedigree, I think every fight at top 25 level is going to carry a bit of risk, considering the weaknesses that Fabio has defensively. Efe Ajagba, while he can punch, while he's very strong, while he could potentially capitalise on Fabio Wardley's mistake, Wardley's a lot quicker, both in terms of hand speed and foot speed. Better reactions as well. And you'd imagine against a guy like Ajagba, Fabio would find the target first. But there's a big risk element there, and I think that fight would be sufficiently intriguing for it to happen next. Plus a step up as well. You know, Ajagba at one point in time was one of the most highly regarded prospects in the world. Had a setback against Frank Sanchez, but he's coming back. He's got a couple of wins. So I really like the Efe Ajagba fight for Fabio Wardley. People are mentioning Otto Wallin as well. I wouldn't hate the fight, but I'm not really sure what Otto Wallin has left. I think he kind of looked for a soft spot to lay down against Joshua. I don't think he went into that fight with any real belief, to be honest with you. And listen, maybe I'm underselling Otto Wallin. It would still be a step up for Fabio Wardley, and I wouldn't mind it. But I'd rather see him fight a guy like Efe Ajagba. Frank Warren also mentioned, by the way, a fight with Jared Anderson. I actually wouldn't mind to see that. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I still think Anderson, despite his obvious limitations, I'd still put him above Fraser Clark head to head. It would still constitute a step up. But ultimately, you know, Fabio's in a much better position than Jared Anderson right now. But I still think it would be an exciting fight. And as flawed as Anderson is, he does still have some attributes that could give Fabio Wardley some trouble, especially considering Wardley's deficiencies. So I don't mind the Anderson fight either for Fabio Wardley. I've seen people kind of mentioning the level above. So we're talking about guys like Ajit Kabayel, Bakole, guys like that. I think it's too soon for those sort of fights. Don't get me wrong. If they were to happen, I'd be very excited for them. And I wouldn't be against them by any means, right? But I'm just talking from like a matchmaking perspective, while also trying to have competitive fights. But yeah, Wardley's in a good position, man. I honestly believe he's one of those guys who can lose a couple. He'll be okay. He can take risks. He's not really supposed to be here, and I hope that's how he treats his career. Like I said, one more. So in between like ranks 11 and 20 in the heavyweight division, a guy along those rankings, and then at that point, then really chance your arm, really roll the dice and take big risks, you know. Because Wardley's a gunslinger, so listen, the heavyweight division's not that deep. A lot of these guys are not that great, right? So if you roll the dice and he swings, you never know what could happen. What I do know will happen is it will be very entertaining regardless. So yeah, I think Fabio Wardley should kind of take that approach. Try to become like the action guy of the heavyweight division. Flawed, beatable, yeah, but fan-friendly. And they're the sort of fighters I want. We need some of those guys in the heavyweight division, in my opinion, especially considering a lot of the old guard are going out. Listen, I'm not saying Fabio Wardley's going to do this, that and the third. I don't think he's got the ability to win a heavyweight title or anything like that, but he can certainly be in very fun fights, and ultimately that is what matters, right? But yeah, he's one of those fighters who's grown on me. Usually I set my stall out early with fighters. I'll either like them or I won't. Wasn't a fan of him for a long time. Felt his early career was basically a lot of fixed fights. But, listen, I'm open to be wrong. And he's definitely converted me. So yeah, good fighter, exciting fighter, flawed, but I'm excited for his future. Where does he go next? Who do you think he should fight next? Share your thoughts below. I like the Ajagba fight. But yeah, share your thoughts below. Peace.